Today is the first Sunday of Advent, the season of Advent, the beginning of the Christian liturgical year. The word Advent means arrival. It's from the Latin verb venire, meaning to come, with the prefix ad, meaning toward or to come to. We often usually think of Advent in relation to Christmas and the arrival of Jesus, but its origin was supposed to refer to the second arrival, events referred to in Isaiah and Mark in today's readings. And because of that, even though it means arrival, that arrival always seems to be in the future, when the just will be rewarded, when the balances will be set right, what they call the fullness of time. Most ancient religions, Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, India, were oriented to the past. They thought there had been a golden age in the past that had been lost. A golden age where everything was better, where people lived longer and the laws were laid down and people followed them in a peaceful and prosperous way of life. For them, the passage of time meant decay from that golden age, a kind of fall that we get a bit of in the Garden of Eden story in Genesis. And as Christians, we look back sometimes as well, not so much to a golden age, but to a founding set of events. We look back to the birth of Jesus in our Christmas celebration. And we do that actually much more today, with more focus today, than did the early church. For them, Easter was a far greater holiday than Christmas. And maybe it's the more complex and stressful that our lives have become that draw us to the archetype of infancy and innocence that we long to return to, combining the arrival of Jesus with emotional memories of our own childhood, our own growing up. So nostalgia, as well as a sense of loss of the golden age, are part of the religious focus on the past. And yet for Christians, I think that the better sentiment with which to look at any past golden age, any sense of our origin, the foundation of our faith, rather than nostalgia or regret, needs to be thanksgiving. And that's appropriate this weekend as we combine Advent with our national secular Thanksgiving mythology or whatever revisions we've made to that story to make it more inclusive and true. Like Christmas, Thanksgiving has grown over time with accumulated traditions of gathering for feasting, with each family having special dishes they always have, with family getting together, extended family often, with certain movies or certain football games, with shopping, usually the day after, but increasingly the evening of Thanksgiving. And the fact that we can't do that this year, or at least can't do it without feeling guilty this year, just highlights, I think, that undertone of loss. That's really always a part of our gratitude. The Greek word for thanksgiving is Eucharist, Eucharistos, Eucharistein, from charis, meaning gift or grace. The prefix EU meaning good, good grace, good gift. And in that Eucharist, that service of thanksgiving, we do remember. Do this, he said, for the remembrance of me. We haven't been able to celebrate the Holy Eucharist very much this year because of the pandemic. But we can still remember. We can still be thankful. Yet Christian faith mostly looks forward rather than back. That arrival is coming, but not yet fully here. And that was the tradition before Jesus and after Jesus. The Hebrew tradition that flows into the church was a faith of a searching, of a journey, of a pilgrimage, beginning with Abraham, looking forward, not back. The promised land always lay ahead, not in some long lost golden age. I've always thought that Jesus taught a kind of realized eschatology, as it's called, the presence of the kingdom, the idea that the kingdom had already come. And yet, fairly soon after the church began forming, certainly at least by the time the Gospel according to Mark was written, an older, more militant, more regal, more dualistic image of the Messianic age, as I said last week, came to replace that view of realized eschatology. A timeline was postulated or reimposed from prior understanding, like the one in today's gospel. And that explained the current suffering, but promised future glory. And that focus on the future had influence even beyond our faith and religious tradition. The idea of progress has filtered out to cover the world. Progress is our most important product, but now it's also China's most important product, and Europe's most important product, and India, etc. As Americans, we're always crossing a new frontier, it seems, and we've shared that focus with everyone else. And like the attitude of gratitude in our experience of the past, the Christian emotional set with which we look to the future is said to be hope. Thanksgiving for the past, but hope for the future. We think, we plan when grounded in faith as if things will work out one way or another. Hope does get tested, definitely. It was tested in the early church. It was tested in medieval times. It's tested now in this year of 2020. We don't have any real idea how all this is going to work out. Pandemic, crazy politics, irreversible climate change. We never really knew the future, but we thought we did. We thought it was predictable. And now we're not so sure. So thoughts come up. Concerns about what used to be something dependable. Images of change and disaster potentially. They arise on their own, it seems. And we've also learned that things can arise that we didn't even know were possible. And that's very disconcerting, because what defense can you put up? Such uncertainty and the worry that goes with it call hope into question sometimes for some people. And for some people, many people, that's enough to hold on to hope by denying the threat, denying the suffering, denying the whole thing, which makes us more helpless. But hope, as I've said a number of times before, Christian hope, faithful hope, is not the same as expectation. It's not belief in wish fulfillment. It just basically turns our future over to the care of God without some laundry list of what we want to happen. We trust that God knows more than we know, knows more what's better for us. It's like the desiderata that was popular when I was young. Whether or not it's clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. That's Christian hope. But there's even more to this. I think I work on, it's deeper, and we can see it a bit if we take a step back and have a wider view. It has to do with time. For me, time is so important in my understanding of myself and my understanding of God and creation. We need to ask ourselves, and Advent is as appropriate a time as any, to transcend time itself, to bracket it on the side, to question how dominant it is, how real it is. Let me explain my thinking on that. Since God is the source of all creation, that's how I define God, the source of everything that is, including time. God cannot be confined by time, isn't bounded by time. For God, in God's reality, there is no past or future. And when we're with God, there isn't any past or future for us as well. That's why I talk about eternal life rather than life after death or immortality. That eternal life is always here. It's hard to realize because our lives as expressions in time are chopped up into moments. So it's hard for us to connect and put it all together. But the oak tree is already present in the acorn. The old man is living right there in the child. Today, Jesus said, you will be with me in paradise. So the future is present. And the same is true for the past as well. When Jesus says, do this for the remembrance of me, the Greek word that's translated as remembrance is the word anamnesis, which means unforgetting, actually. But it has in it the sense of bringing forward something past to be present in the present. The philosopher Jean Gebser spoke of the ever-present origin. The theologian Paul Tillich spoke about the eternal now. These were expressions of the widest understanding of reality. God in God's world, us in God's world. Reality is that we always inhabit, but are constantly distracted from. And the attitude, the faithful attitude, the Christian attitude, like thanksgiving toward a past or hope for a future, vis-a-vis the eternal presence, the eternal now, is the attitude of love. Love is an expression of our relationship with everything. And in that ever-presence, in that eternal now, we can only understand ourselves as connected to everything. Everything in the world participates in our life, and we in the life of everything that is. Even in quarantine, we're never alone. We don't have to have particular conditions to be thankful for or hopeful for or find our way to love. It doesn't have to be the fourth Thursday in November. It doesn't have to be the fourth Sunday before Christmas to be thankful or hopeful or to be open to love. It's been given. And it's coming. And it's all here right now. Thanks be to God.